Well, I'm going to take one more shot at doing the sissy story after Jane ruined my last attempt by her selfish phone call to remind me that she did not, in fact, use the word penis when describing her sucking on Herbie Hancock's cock. Oh, I didn't use the word penis, she had to tell me, ruining my story reading. She did manage to use a lot of other foul words, but that didn't seem to bother her. But anyway, Jane, now the world knows that you didn't say penis in your reading the other night at the Canoga Park Library, so you can be happy. And you can be happy that you ruined fucking an hour of my work here. So, thanks. All right, so I'm going back to the story where I went back over to Sissy's house after I had first met her, and I couldn't stop thinking about her, and I was really getting kind of crazy about her. So we went over to her house, and Boom Boom answered the door. Boom Boom's her fat sister, and with a ham sandwich hanging out of her mouth, and Boom Boom was kind of mean to me. So anyway, here we go. We walked along the hill over the side of the freeway, and up over the hill, the one where, as a kid, I used to hide and throw dirt clods at the passing cars, and then down past the Rocket bowling alley. The sun was just beginning to set, and the crickets were already chirping. It was a magical time of day. Even ugly old Canoga Park looked pretty okay. Every few minutes I'd glance over at Sissy. She was truly beautiful. What's more, she constantly seemed to change even as I looked at her. "Who is that girl who answered the door?" I asked her. "Oh, that's Boom Boom. She's my sister. Well, half-sister, actually." "I don't think she liked me very much," I said. Boom Boom don't hardly like nobody," Sissy replied. "Don't take it personal or nothing." She smiled at me when she said this. She had a wonderful smile, and right then, for the very first second, I really thought I might be in love with her. I mean, it seemed crazy and all. My God, I was 25 years older than she was, but what the hell? What could I do? "So, how old are you, anyhow?" I asked her. Sissy didn't miss a beat. 15, she grinned. "But I can look lots older. Mostly I don't even get asked for my ID." Sissy didn't. After we'd walked for a while, Sissy and I went back to the bowling alley. Once inside, we bought Cokes and a bunch of candy bars out of the machine. We sat at one of the tables while the people bowled, eating the candy and drinking Cokes and watching the bowlers. It was nice. Sissy lit up a smoke. So did I. I didn't actually smoke, but I just somehow, being around Sissy, I just felt like doing it. Then she started talking. To tell you the truth, I didn't really listen all that much to what she was saying. I just loved looking at her across the table from me. I loved the sound of her voice with its soft southern drawl. I thought she could say anything, and I'd be able to listen to her forever. What I did hear of Sissy's conversation was absolutely fascinating. When she lived in Atlanta, she'd had this boyfriend named Mouse, who was a biker. Mouse used to hit Sissy a lot, and one time he even knocked a couple of her teeth. "See," she said, and with that, she popped out her two front teeth. It was funny. Even without her teeth, Sissy was beautiful. But it wasn't just so much her physical good looks, which were considerable, that had gotten to me, but it was rather this chameleon-like quality that she had. She seemed to be able to change almost at will. One moment, she looked like a little girl, and the next second her face would grow hard and cold like a woman twice her age. Oh, Sissy had been around the block a few times. I had no illusions about that. She told me that Mouse had made her sell her body when they couldn't get the rent money up. First time she'd been only 12. "You mean to say you were a prostitute when you were 12? I exclaimed. "I wasn't so bad," Sissy mused, munching on a Snickers bar. "In fact, it was sort of fun. One time I fucked Magic Johnson," she said. "He had the biggest fucking dick of any human being I've ever seen in my entire life." I must have given her a funny look. Don't worry," Sissy said, grabbing my finger on my hand under the table. "I don't do it with nobody now unless I really like them." Sissy told me about this one time when she and Mouse had been real down on their luck, and Mouse had decided to rob a liquor store. Sissy didn't actually do any of the robbing, but she'd driven the getaway car. As she sat waiting outside the store, she heard a shot. Then Mouse had come running out. I don't know for sure, she said, but I think he might have killed the guy. He never would tell me for sure, but I really think he did. Then her eyes went foggy for a moment, and then, bingo, she became a little girl all over again. This is really fun sitting here now, isn't it? Sissy beamed. Yes, I said, yes, it is. And inside I could feel my heart go pitter-pat, pitter-pat. Good God, she was so beautiful. I was really crazy about her. I didn't care if she'd robbed 1,000,000 liquor stores. The next morning, Sissy came over to my place. We decided to walk up to the delicatessen in the shopping mall around the corner from my house and have some breakfast. That day I was in a very black mood. My father is dying, I told her. He has cancer. The doctors say he only has 6 months to live. Sissy just looked over at me. Well, I'll have to die, she said. I thought that was a pretty strange response, but I didn't tell her this. When we got to the deli, Sissy kept asking me nonstop questions about all the Jewish words on the menu. She seemed to be getting a big kick out of the fact that I was Jewish. You're my first one, she said happily, running her tongue over her large teeth. She seemed so happy that pretty soon I began to feel not quite so depressed. I watched her as she spread cream cheese on a bagel and slurped at her orange juice. Then while she munched her bagel, Sissy did something that I thought was absolutely wonderful. Underneath the table, she reached across and she put her hand right on my crotch and grabbed it as hard as she could, right there in the middle of the deli and all. The next second, I had the biggest hard-on I've ever had in my entire life. Let's go to my place and fuck, she said. But what about your dad and Boom Boom, I asked. Daddy's down at the welfare picking up his check and Boom Boom's at work, she said, squeezing my crotch. Come on, let's go. All right, I said, trying to sound casual. We went to Sissy's apartment and fucked. We fucked for hours and hours and hours and hours. Sissy was absolutely tireless. Long after I'd worn myself out, she still wanted more. In fact, she seemed to gather energy with each subsequent fuck, which I thought was rather nice. But there was no way in hell I could keep up with her. Finally, I lay on my back, staring up at the stucco ceiling. I was drenched in sweat. The apartment was 1,000,000 degrees inside, no air conditioning, but I didn't mind. Somehow it added to the atmosphere. I imagined that Sissy and I were in Atlanta, or at least some southern town like that, and soon I fell into this Tennessee Williams-ish kind of a fantasy. Sissy and I were Elizabeth Taylor and Paul Newman in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. All we do all day is lie around in our underwear and just smoke cigarettes. We'd clink our iced teas and blow the smoke out of our cigarettes real smooth like they do in the movies. Outside the house, I could hear the low murmur of southern people talking on the front porch and the sound of the black gardener sweeping up piles of leaves. Tsh, 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 went his rake. Pretty soon I drifted off to sleep again. I awoke to find Sissy sucking greedily on my prick. She didn't notice that I'd woken up, so she just kept going on about her business. Now, most girls look fairly stupid with a prick in their mouth. They really do. But not Sissy. On the contrary, she remained quite lovely. She really did. When she finally noticed I'd awoken, Sissy let my prick slip out of her mouth. Hello, she said. Hi, I answered. Then, just like a little kid with a new toy, Sissy began to pretend my penis was a gearshift knob on an automobile. She went, shifting into second. Please don't shift my penis, I asked politely. Instantly, Sissy began to pout. Oh, she was such an actress, this one. But then she seemed to get a bright idea. You could see it on her face. The next second, she climbed on top of me and sat right down on my rigid cock. I like to be on top, she said, bouncing up and down. It's fun. Sissy looked down at her blonde cunt, which was dripping juices all over my crotch. This seemed to delight her. Everything seemed to delight her. I like it when it gets all wet and sticky, she said, scooting up and down on top of me. Yeah, I replied. When we'd finished our lovemaking, Sissy said she wanted to go over to the thrifty drugstore and get an ice cream cone. This was fine with me. I really didn't care where we went, to tell you the truth. I was just entranced by her. Inside the drugstore, Sissy was like a little kid. She wanted to touch everything. She kept stopping to handle the perfumes, the greeting cards, the hairbrushes, and all the combs. She seemed particularly fascinated with all the different color bottles of shampoo. As we walked through the store, I noticed that Sissy was wearing this really horrible pair of old tennis shoes. They were practically falling apart. I told her she should pick out some new ones. Really? She said. Are you sure? She couldn't actually believe that anyone would want to buy her anything. Go on, I said. It's all right. Sissy looked and looked, finally deciding on a pair of those blue deck shoes. They only cost $3.50, so I told her to get another pair, but she said no, one was enough, thank you. For a girl that was basically poor white trash, she really had very good manners. When we got outside, it was dark. We walked down a side street, past all the little houses with the lights on inside. Sometimes you could see people gathered around a TV set, or perhaps a man in a chair reading a novel. Everything seemed very still and peaceful. For the moment, the world seemed a good, safe place to be. I wondered what it would be like if Sissy and I did get married. Would we be in one of those little houses watching TV or reading? Would she come up behind me and just put her hand on my shoulder lightly? Then the next second, the other part of my brain jumped in and said, "What the hell are you talking about, man? This is just a kid. A goddamn 15-year-old kid, for God's sake. A 15-year-old ex-hooker who's robbed liquor stores and maybe even participated in a murder. Come on, man, wake up." Just as I thought this, Sissy took hold of my hand, and all the thoughts went away. Poof, just like that. We walked along not saying anything, just holding hands. She was a great hand holder. She didn't grasp too much or not enough. No, she did it just right. And her hand never got all sweaty either. Man, she was really something. The next day, Sissy and I drove up the coast highway to Santa Barbara. We stopped at this one beach in Ventura where a long rock jetty ran out for several miles along the sand. Then we noticed something very peculiar about the place. Inside the rocks that made up the jetty, there were all these cats. Hundreds of cats, maybe even thousands. They were obviously feral. You could tell from the look of them. Most of them were extremely skinny, as if they hadn't been fed for a long time. It was really a very strange sight, seeing hundreds of cats climbing all over the rocks like that. Sissy, for her part, seemed very excited by this. She went over to try to pick up one of the cats, but it arched its back and hissed at her. "Be careful," I said. "They might have some kind of disease or something." But Sissy kept on running after the cats, climbing in and out of the rocks, talking to them and chasing them all over the place. She kept it up for the next couple of hours. Finally, late that night, we drove back to Los Angeles along the coast highway. The lights on the ships out at the sea made the scene look like some kind of magical fairy tale. Sissy was very quiet during the ride. Ever since the cat, she'd been quiet. Finally, we got to my house. "You want to come in and watch some TV?" I asked. Sissy just looked at me blankly. "I don't care," she said, real pouty-like. So we went inside. Sissy plumped down on the couch and sulked silently while I watched a rerun of The Fugitive. I've always been a huge, big fan of David Jansen. "Are you all right?" I asked after a while, but she wouldn't even look at me. "What's wrong?" I finally asked. "Does something bother you?" "You people make me sick," she said finally. I looked at her. "What people?" I asked her. "All you people. You're all exactly the same," Sissy hissed. She was glaring at me now, and there was real hatred in her eyes. "And you're just like all the rest of them. You and your cancer and your death and your talk, talk, talk. God, is that all you ever do is talk? What the hell are you talking about?" "Fuck you," Sissy yelled, jumping up from the couch. "Fuck you to death." And with that, she stormed outside. When Sissy came back in the house, she was friendly and sweet again. She kissed me on the cheek, then she headed for the door. "I gotta go home and make sure Daddy's eating some dinner. He'd just sit in front of that dang TV all day and not eat a thing if I let him get away with it." I found Sissy's concern for her father to be quite admirable. "Okay," I said. "Maybe I'll see you tomorrow." "Bye, sweetie," she said, kissing me on the cheek before she left. Normally, I couldn't stand it if somebody called me sweetie or honey, but when Sissy did it, it sounded wonderful. I told you I had it bad. The next morning, I drove over to Sissy's house. When I got there, I ran up the stairs and knocked on the door. A moment later, her fat sister answered. "Hi, Boom Boom," I said. "Is Sissy here?" Boom Boom still looked like she wanted to kill me. Sissy ain't here right now, she spat. Well, do you know when she'll be back? I asked. Come back later, Boom Boom said. Then she slammed the door in my face. When I got home, I tried to get some work done, but nothing would come. I simply couldn't stop thinking about Sissy. Every time I thought about her, my heart seemed to hurt. Oh man, it was awful. At around 4 o'clock, I went back over to Sissy's place. Out front, Jason was sitting on the curb watching cars and drooling all over himself. Hi, Jason, I said. Jason looked up. He said. Have you seen Sissy? I queried. Jason looked at me rather quizzically and inserted a finger into his left nostril. He said, taking a good healthy pick at his nose. I went back upstairs and knocked on Sissy's door, but this time nobody answered. Finally, I gave up and left. When I got home, it was around 5 o'clock p.m. It was the time of day I hated most. Nothing seemed to make any sense at this time of day. Everything was in limbo. Nothing was firm. It made me feel real weak and scared. This happened to me every day at this time. My doctor had given me some medicine to take care of the depression, but it didn't do a damn thing. But on this day, it was really bad. The doctor had told me if I felt the depression coming bad on, I should do something physical. But I just didn't have enough energy. It was like something had sucked all the life out of me, and I was just this dead thing, this blob. Finally, I decided the best thing to do would be to go to sleep. So I went and lay down on the couch. Soon, I fell into a strange dream. In the dream, I was back at the cat beach, only this time something was wrong there. The entire beach was littered with the bodies of dead cats. A few stray cats hobbled along, poking amongst the bodies of their mates. They were obviously very sick and would soon die. In some of the rocks along the jetty, the mother cats were eating their bodies of their sick and dying babies. The hot sun glared down on them. Something horrible and ominous was in the air, kind of a sound or maybe even some kind of a demonic presence of some sort. Whatever it was terrible. I started to get sick to my stomach. I awoke in a sweat, and before I knew it, what I was doing, I was driving like a madman over to Sissy's house. I got there and I bounded up the stairs 2 at a time. My heart was beating a mile a minute. Knock, knock, knock. Nothing. Bang, bang, bang. A moment later, Sissy's father answered the door. He was still attired in that same dirty white undershirt he'd been wearing the first day I'd met him. He stood there blinking up at me, unrecognizing. Is Sissy here? I asked. He just stood there sort of weaving around. I said, is Sissy here? Nah, he finally said. Well, where is she? Sissy won't be back, her father said. Well, you mean she won't be back today, or Sissy won't be back, ever? But I mean, she's gone, he repeated. Gone. The poor guy looked like he was about to start crying, and I didn't know what to say. So I just turned around and walked back down the stairs. Behind me, I could hear something that sounded either like coughing or crying. I couldn't tell which. I didn't feel much like going home, so I walked back over the hill to the bowling alley. It was really crowded when I got there. I went inside and sat at the same table where Sissy and I had sat last week. I just sat there letting the sounds of the clattering balls and the voices fill me up. Got to get this camera thing straight. There, better. There was something peculiar about the bowlers. I couldn't figure out what it was. Then it was all of a sudden clear. All the bowlers were deformed in one way or another. There were paraplegics, hunchbacks, quadriplegics, guys with no arms and legs, cripples of every possible shape, size, and variety. I sat and watched the crippled bowlers. They were having a grand old time, laughing and shouting and drinking beer and being rowdy just like regular people. I watched a guy with no arms and legs wheel his chair down the lane and throw the ball with some contraption he'd rigged to his teeth. His buddies all cheered him on, laughing and snorting madly. It was really something. As I watched, I tried to feel sorry for the crippled bowlers, but I just couldn't pull it off. After that didn't work, I tried to thank God that I had my health and all that. but I couldn't do that either. I was just so damn sad and lonely that I couldn't feel much of anything. After about an hour, I left the bowling alley and went home. On the way, I went by Sissy's place again. I was sort of hoping Jason might be out front in the curb. I thought maybe I'd try to strike up a conversation with him or something. But when I got to the curb where he usually sat, it was empty. This made me feel even worse than I already did. When I got home, I lay down on the couch and flipped on the TV with no sound. My face was all numb and my mouth didn't seem to be working very well. I wanted to cry or something, but nothing would come. There were little clanking and clicking sounds and popping sounds in my brain. I did my best to ignore them, but finally, after a long time, I fell into a dull gray sleep. About a month later, I was at home watching a cooking program on the afternoon TV. Watching cooking programs is one of my favorite ways to pass the time. The only thing I don't like is if the person on the show sticks his arm up some old chicken's rectal cavity or something. Things like that can be really disgusting. Fortunately, this doesn't happen too often. Anyhow, I was watching this cooking show when I heard the mail clank in the little slot. I went and got it. It's the usual garbage, bills and stuff. Then I spied the postcard. I knew instantly who it was from. Sure enough, the postmark said, Atlanta, Georgia. The picture on the front of the card was one of those corny old cartoons of a bum hitchhiking in the middle of the desert. The caption underneath the picture read, "I'll make it, one of these days." I'd always loved those old postcards. They reminded me of long stretches of empty highway and little pink motels with green neon signs that shone in the night and 10-cent bottles of Dr. Pepper and ladies in flower print dresses. That kind of stuff, you know. On the back of the card there was a note. It read simply, "Thanks for the tennis shoes." It was signed, "Love, Sissy." I noticed the handwriting. It had those large squiggly letters with the big old dots over the eyes. Real teenage. I sat back down on the couch and thought about Sissy. I wondered what she was doing. I wondered if she'd gone back to Mouse and to robbing liquor stores and hustling her ass on the streets. I pictured her face. I wondered if it would grow hard and bitter by the time she reached 20. I wondered if she still read Proust aloud. I even wondered who was making lunch for her father now that she was gone. I wondered all kinds of things, but I didn't get any answers. I looked at the postcard again. I held it under my nose to see if any of Sissy's smell had rubbed off on it, but it just smelled like an ordinary postcard. The cooking show ended and another program came on. The show was called Body Buddies. It featured this not-in-very-shape couple doing a bunch of stupid exercises. The guy had this gigantic gold medallion hanging around his neck and this phony curly hairdo or wig, I couldn't tell which. And the woman had these fat white arms that jiggled whenever she moved. It was impossible to look at them. Finally, I flipped the TV off and sat there staring at the empty screen. I watched the tiny speck of light in the middle of the screen grow smaller and smaller. Finally, it disappeared. I couldn't think of anything to do, so I didn't do anything. The end.